Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and in this case analyzing this video of a shooting that took place in Argentina, I believe it is, probably Buenos Aires. So someone sent me this through Instagram. Mine is Fairfile308. If you want to follow me on Instagram, link is going to be there below. Also, the links below there for my books, and the one that mostly relates to what you're seeing here is Street Survival Skills, my latest book, which I always recommend precisely because of this. What you're going to be seeing here in just a few seconds, it's like 6 or 7 pages or different chapters specifically from this book. So you're going to be seeing why it is that people get shot in the arms when shooting one another, because your hands get positioned in the center of mass where you're both shooting at one another. You'll see how the guy uses the vehicle as cover, and he's positioned precisely like I explained in Street Survival Skills. Also improvising tourniquets, which is something I explain in Street Survival Skills as well. So a bunch of stuff that you see here I cover in my book Street Survival Skills, in case you want to go check it out and get prepared for this kind of incident. Also, what you wouldn't have gone through if you've done some of this stuff that I explained in the book in terms of awareness. So before we even get started, I want you guys to understand this. It's always cool when you see the videos and you see the shooting and all that stuff, and especially when good guys win. We all love that. But get this in your head. It would have been better if this had been avoided. One of the other things I also go through pages and pages in my book is avoid this in the first place. Why are you hanging out here in the sidewalk? In Argentina, that's simply a bad idea in general. So if you're talking with your friend, go indoors. Your house, his, doesn't matter. But this is just the window of opportunity that you should never allow criminals to access. That's the first big mistake that the guy makes here, and that's the thing I want you guys to get. When you live in dangerous places like this is what you don't do, so as to avoid all of this entirely. So we have the guy talking with his friend, and you see this vehicle, which of course is up to no good. One of the other things I explain in my book is state of awareness even within your vehicle. This is the kind of thing I did for years while living there. You watch your mirrors, and you watch in those 7 spots where I explained in the book that allow you to see 365 degrees all around you. But this, bad idea. So they get out of the car. Just one of the guys gets out of the car with a gun already pointed at the friend, and the friend just takes off, and that's fine. If he hasn't got anything to do there, if he hasn't got any training, any firearms, and he's just not gonna be helping in that situation, then just leave. You have nothing else to do there if you don't have any way of helping out. So he just leaves, and the criminal goes after the guy in the car. He asks him to get out at gunpoint, and he is extracted from the vehicle. He starts looking around, see if he has a wallet, cell phone, checks the wallet, looks, not happy enough. What else do you have there? Keeps on pointing the gun, looks around, nervous, starts checking, and there he goes for his own gun. Now, notice a couple things. 4 o'clock position, with the one I recommend. I'm not a big fan of appendix carry because it's a lot more noticeable, a lot more visible, and a lot more obvious when you're drawing in these kind of situations. Some of these videos, I've seen it work. In general, I like the idea of it being more concealed. Even though you're going for the gun, at least you're not seeing the gun as it's being drawn, or at least your attacker hasn't got it right in his face, so as to see when you're pulling it out of the front of your body, and there's a better chance of doing this a little bit more successfully. So he goes for the gun and pushes it a little bit out of the X, it's being pointed straight at him, so he pushes it out of the way at least a little bit, and he still gets away. The criminal gets away. He keeps on shooting, shoots a couple times, a bit more. Look at the position. This guy is obviously, I have no idea who he is, but I can tell you right away, this guy is probably a police officer, a cop, someone that has a bit of understanding of how to use a gun. And the stance, the way he instinctively ends up pointing and engages, it's pretty accurate. Now, he gets shot. You saw the flash right there, and he goes down, and immediately you see this gun is leaking in that instant. So that revolver was probably a 38, maybe a 357, but it wasn't a small caliber gun. It was obviously something pretty serious, because right away he goes down, and as soon as he puts that hand in the floor, you see it leaking pretty bad. And look how it keeps on leaking. He gets behind the vehicle. That's another smart thing he does. That's something I explain as well in the book. Then that would be the right position to get in. Lower your head as much as possible so as to not get shot there. But you're looking to put as much metal, and especially the engine. You want to put as much metal between you and your attacker as he's leaving, maybe a little bit lower so as to avoid this, glass is not going to be doing much for you, so even lower would be better. But he's wounded and he's worried about that. You obviously see him, not knowing exactly what to do, and the blood starts pouring very bad. It's like a faucet. You see it on the floor there, how it's more and more. He's bleeding a lot. He's actually bleeding a lot. Now, at this point, I'd say you want to, get your phone, call 911 or whatever emergency service you have. Probably want to get on the floor, lift that hand, and see if he can control that bleeding. But at that point, I think he needs a tourniquet right away. Something that I explain on my book, how to improvise a tourniquet better. Even have a first aid kit in the back of your car, in that trunk, and access that first aid kit where you should have a tourniquet, maybe Celox gauze, something to stop that bleeding. If not, improvise it with a belt, improvise it with your shirt or whatever clothing you have, but you have to stop that bleeding, because if not, he's going to be bleeding out. Could be worse, but it's pretty bad. And that's it. It's just a matter of some of the things going down, and how, to some extent, he was lucky he got shot in the hand and not in the head. He could have easily caught that bullet in the head and probably would have been the end of him. But several things worth mentioning, and definitely things to learn from. I think that the more important one is, don't be there in the first place. When you're in those kind of dangerous places, just don't be there. He could have gotten shot here as well when he did that. But man, it's quite noticeable how he bleeds very fast. That bullet there in his arm, I'm telling you, that was no 22. That had to be something a lot bigger. By the flash, I would dare say probably 357. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a 357 Magnum. Either that or just something that hit pretty bad in that artery in his arm, or something like that, because there's a lot of blood coming out instantly from that gunshot wound. So yeah, just several things there for you to learn. And this is the reality that I always talk about in terms of dangerous places. This is probably not something that happens. If you live in some of the more safer parts of the world, that's maybe something that ends up happening where you live. But these kind of incidents, like carjacking attempts like this is bread and butter. This is everyday life in places like Buenos Aires, where I'm from. This happens every single day. Lots of cases like this, exactly like this, every single day, throughout the night, and you just have to live in a different state of awareness, because that's what the environment demands of you. You just cannot live like this. It's pretty stressful, sure. But the only thing you can do is just avoid this as much as possible. Of course, training pays off in these cases a lot. I would say that this guy is a cop, a police officer of some kind. I think I wish he had kept on shooting more when we started shooting. He gets in that right stance there, and unfortunately gets shot. But maybe several more rounds fired, he could have stopped him right there, right away. That would have been nice. But this is what ends up happening, and there's lessons here for you folks to learn. Guys, it's gonna be all for now. I hope you enjoyed this little video. Remember that, again, this stuff, I cover a lot of this because of this stuff, because of how often it goes down in all of these things. It just happens time and again, and that's how you learn the valuable lessons. That's the kind of thing that I explain. Folks, see you on our next video. Have an awesome day.